Hello to everyone. My name is Noslen Hernandez, and I'm going to present a work entitled Retrieving the Structure of Probabilistic Sequences of Auditory Stimuli from EEG Data. This is a work in collaboration with Aline Duarte, Guilherme Oz, Ricardo Freiman, Antonio Galvez, and Claudia Vargas. This work is already published in the Scientific Reports Journal. And as Claudia mentioned in her talk, this research is part of the neuromath project called the Statistician Brain, aimed at study the conjecture that the brain identifies statistical regularity in sequence of stimuli. This is a classical conjecture dating from the Helmholtz work, and there are some experimental evidence in literature supporting this conjecture. This conjecture has been formally addressed in a previous article, as it was explained in Aline's talk, and in the probabilistic framework that Aline introduced, the conjecture that the brain identifies statistical regularity from sequence of stimuli can be rephrased by claiming that the brain identifies the context tree used to generate the sequence of auditory stimuli. So, if this is the case, a signature of the context tree that was used to generate the stimuli should be encoded in the brain activity. Therefore, the question of interest for us is whether this signature can be identified in the EEG data recorded during the experiment. For this, we designed an experimental protocol in which volunteers were exposed to a sequence of auditory stimuli while they have their EEG signals recorded. The auditory stimuli consists of strong beats, weak beats, and silent units. Strong and weak beats consist of hand claps, and we use two different context tree models to generate the sequence of auditory stimuli. One that we call ternary tree or ternary condition, and the other one we call quaternary condition. As Claudia mentioned, in the sequence generated by the ternary model, a strong beat is followed by two weak beats, and in sequence generated by quaternary condition, a strong beat is followed by two weak beats, but besides that, we have a constitutive silent unit separating the two weak beats. It can be observed here. In both cases, with a small probability and in an independent way, the weak beats can be replaced by a silent unit. Here I highlighted in red some of the randomly chosen weak beats that will be replaced by silent units. So at the end, we have sequences of this type, for example. And here I summarize the rules that governs the generation of this kind of sequence. This is the tree of context for the ternary condition, and the associated family, the associated transition probability, in a way that, for example, if the sequence of past symbol ends with the string 2 to 1 or 2 0 to 0, then the next symbol will be 0 with probability 0.2, 1 with probability 0.8, and the symbol 2 never occurs after this string. This is the transitions allowed and the corresponding probability when the sequence of past symbols ends with those strings. And the same we can observe here for the quaternary condition. Besides the ternary and the quaternary condition, we consider a sequence of stimuli generated by choosing at each step either 0, 1, or 2 with equal probability, and independently from the past symbols observed. This condition was introduced to shuffle cards before the participants were exposed to an example. So each participant was exposed to two blocks of sequence of auditory stimuli. Here are the representation of these two blocks, each one of 12.5 minutes. These blocks were separated by a period of time ranging from 5 to 10 minutes. And each of these blocks was composed by 3 sub-blocks. These sub-blocks were separated by 1 minute of silent interval, and each sub-block is a concatenation of a 1 minute sequence of auditory units generated either by the ternary, the independent, or the quaternary condition. Each sequence of auditory unit was separated from the next one by a 15-second silent interval, and each sub-block, as I mentioned, was separated from the next one by 1 minute silent interval. The EEG data was acquired using a 128 channel system, and for half of the volunteer, the starting bigger block contains sub-block of the type ternary, independent, and quaternary, as is shown here in the slide. And the inverse order was used with the other half of participants to balance possible order effects. So as raw data, we have an EEG signal record according to this block structure for each electrode and each participant. This is our raw data. This raw data was pre-processed. There were used different pre-processing steps that I summarize here. But at the end, we finalized with a segmented EEG signal. The signal was segmented using windows of 450 milliseconds, starting 50 milliseconds before the presentation of the stimuli. So, for example, in this image, we can see an example of a realization of the ternary condition and the associate EEG chunk for each of the units. So for the statistical analysis, we had a set of participants that in our case are 19 individuals. From the 128 electrodes we consider for the analysis, 18 electrodes that form part of the international 1020 system. Here are the names of those 18 electrodes considered in the analysis. And our data then can be formalized as follows. We have for each participant V and each electrode E, we will have a sequence of stimuli, and this is for a fixed condition. We have a sequence of stimuli, and we have the segment of EEG data recorded during the exposure to the auditory stimuli. So this data that we have on each participant and each electrode is a bivariate stochastic change, and we assume that is a realization of a sequence of random objects driven by a context-free model as Aline defined. So we can use the model selection procedure that Aline explained, and we get as a result an estimate context tree. So we will have an estimate context tree for each participant and each electrode. After estimating one context tree per electrode and per participant, we end up on each electrode E with a set of context tree. And we summarize this set of context tree in a unique context tree that we call the mode context tree. And how is the mode context tree compute? Well, we begin with the context tree of maximal height 4 in our case. And for each node of this tree, we count the number of times it was selected or it was identified as a context in this set of tree. So for example, here we have the string 0, 0. We count the number of times 0, 0 results a context on this tree, and we have here 1, 2, 3, and so on. So we have that 0, 0 was 11 times a context in this set of three. This is repeat for all the nodes, and we select as context or as leaf of this tree the nodes that satisfies these two conditions that appear here in the step 3. The first condition is that no node in the subtree induced by the node that is being analyzed, for example, no node in the subtree induced by 0, 0 has greater value than it. Here, no node here has greater value than 11. And the second condition is that no node in the path from 0, 0 to the root, which is highlighted here in blue, satisfies the first condition. So here I have two nodes from 0, 0 to the root. This node does not satisfy condition 1 because there are several nodes here with value greater than 4. This node does not satisfy condition 1 because there are several nodes here with value greater than 0. So as this does not satisfy 1 and this does not satisfy 1, and all these here are lower than 11, then this node 0, 0 will be a context or a leaf of the mode context tree. And this analysis is done for all the nodes, and we end up with, for example, in this case, in this example, the leaf will be the node highlighted in red. Here are the results for the quaternary condition. We put here the structure of the quaternary tree in order to compare with the mode context tree that we obtain on each electron. And we use a color scale to illustrate the similarity of the mode context tree with the quaternary tree. The near to the dark green, the more similar the mode and the quaternary, and the near to the dark pink, the more dissimilar. And this was the way the formula used to compute this similarity. Oh, well, what we can highlight from these results is that we can observe that in 5 frontal electrode, 1 temporal electrode, and two parietal electrodes, which are this in dark green, the mode context tree exactly match the quaternary tree. Besides, among the green ones, the one was misidentified as a context only here in F7, And for those FA, C4, C3, and PC, we have that 00 was also misidentified as a context. So we can see that here in those that I mentioned is missing the third order context. And for those electrodes in pink, we have two kind of problems. The first one is that one was misidentified as a context, and the second one is that also 00 was misidentified as a context. This summarizes what we obtain in the quaternary condition. For the ternary condition, the mode context tree match the ternary tree on three electrodes that we can see here, FP2, F7, and G8. 12 out of 18 electrodes correctly identify 2 as a context. Also, 16 out of 18 electrodes contain the subtree 011121, this subtree here. And surprisingly, this other subtree, the 001020, was correctly identified only in 3 electrodes, which are the ones who are the one in which the correct tree structure was obtained. In some of the pink ones, in some of the electrodes highlighted in pink, we observe that a second order dependency, which did not exist in the original structure, appears. That are these subtree branching from the node corresponding to the string 2. This here, here, and here. To evaluate the interindividual variability, we calculate the distance between the mode context tree and the context tree retrieved across participants. We use a distance introduced in this reference that I put here. And we can observe in the box plot, we do that for each electrode, okay, on each condition. For each electrode, we did a box plot of those distant values, and we can observe that the individual context tree retrieved per participant at a given electrode concentrated around the mode context tree. Moreover, both the median of the distance and the interquartile range are small, so these two things are indicates a relative low interindividual variability. To evaluate how likely it is to obtain our result just by change, we did a simulation that consists in the following. We consider the set of all candidate tree, context tree that can be obtained from the pruning procedure, okay, from the mode selection procedure. In this case, in the case of the quaternary, I will detail here only the quaternary case because the ternary results were very similar. For the case of the quaternary condition, we have 51 possible candidates in the set of all possible context trees that can result from the pruning procedure. And we randomly choose 19 trees uniformly in the set of possible candidate context tree. 19 because it's the number of participants in our experiment. And from this 19 tree, we compute the mode context tree. And we repeat step 1 and 2 10,000 times. After that, we obtain an empirical distribution of the mode context tree. That is what is presented here. I highlight in red the three structures that we obtain as mode context tree in the results. And we can see, for example, that the structure corresponding to the quaternary tree have a probability of occurrence of 0.02. So if we can compute the probability that the quaternary tree appears as a mode context tree in exactly 8 out of 18 electrons. That was our results. And this probability is around this number here, which is overwhelmingly small. So the chance of having obtained the results we present by chance is very improbable. Well, as a summary and some discussions with what we see in literatures, some contexts were estimated quite consistently. For example, context 2 was appears in all the mode context 3 for the quaternary condition, and in 12 out of 18 electrodes in the ternary condition. This sub-tree in the quaternary was obtained 11 out of 18. This other sub-tree, which are the third order contexts, were retrieved in half of electrodes for the quaternary condition. And for the ternary condition, this sub-tree was obtained in 6 out of the 18 electrodes. And this was the one that I mentioned that was obtained only 3 times, that I will explain in a moment. The reason why we consider this is happening. Well, our results show that it was possible to retrieve second and third order temporal dependence from EEG signal. We have here second and third order temporal dependency. Also, in our experiment, the retrieving of some subtree could be explained by the presence of a mismatch negativity response. This is a case, for example, of this subtree in which the silent unit 0 appearing as a third element in each of this string appear as a surprise for 2 of them, here highlighted in red, and as unexpected to occur in the third context. Using the context tree approach, however, we went beyond the identification of a mismatch negativity response. In this subtree, for example, the weak bit 1 appearing as a second element in the 2 string is expected to occur with high probability in both cases. The successful retrieval of these cases attests that the volunteer is learning the structure of the sequence of stimuli beyond the surprise level that can be in the signals. Regarding the spatial distribution in the scalp, the mode context tree corresponding exactly to the tree that generates the sequence of stimuli were mostly obtained in the frontal region, which is also coherent with what we found in the literature. And the fact that this subtree was identified only in 3 electrodes can be explained by the fact that the silent unit, that is the 0, the last 0, appearing at the end of the pair is always the consequence of erasing the most probable weak bit represented by the symbol 1. So in all for all these cases, that 0 appears as the fact of erasing the symbol 1. And this is a typical situation of mismatch negativity in the EEG signal triggered by the omission response. So we think that in this case, this effect is masking the different between the EEG laws corresponding to those contexts. Thank you for your attention.